Is Europe facing an energy crisis of our own making? Will it be a disaster this winter? Wars and crazy climate policies, of course, leading the charge on this. The German government admitting it might need to turn on more coal-powered plants because of the energy crisis. So you shut down nuclear power plants and have to turn on more coal-powered plants. It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Ralph Schoellhammer is an academic researcher who is one of the keenest minds covering Europe's energy hypocrisy and has been following this very closely. Ralph, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Clayton, so great to be back on, and thank you for the high praise. I hope I can live up to the expectations.
Always you do. So you watch this very closely. I know you're in Austria. You're heading off to Brussels, in the heart of it all in Europe there. So Germany turns off the cleanest form, safest form of energy in favor of the dirtiest and perhaps least efficient form of energy. And they're admitting we may need to keep these things on for a lot longer now. It's madness to me.
No, it is. It reminds me of the very, very first conversation we had almost over a year ago when we talked about these Toynbee quotes that civilization started from suicide and not murder. And the Germans are about to find the perfection of this art form. I mean, you're absolutely right. It was always clear that the only way to replace nuclear is either with gas or with coal. Like the idea we don't have a single case globally where coal was replaced, for example, by renewables, right? Renewables can add on, but they cannot replace it because, as all of you viewers and listeners know, it's intermittent, right? You know when the sun is shining, but even there, of course, it depends on, if it's a cloudy day, if it's, depending on the time of the year. And with the wind, it's like rolling a dice. You never know when there is enough wind and when there is not enough wind. So this was absolutely clear that they will return to coal. It's going to be interesting towards the end of 2030 when they want to completely exit coal as well, which between the two of us is never going to happen. And the only thing that keeps us afloat at the moment, we are again at the moment lucky with an extraordinary warm fall / warm beginning of the winter. So climate change is saving us from our own idiotic climate change policies.
Right. Now you mentioned 2030. Of course, that's the goal, like this net zero goal, and we're going to hit peak use of these resources by then. I guess we won't be driving anymore. Wars won't exist, and we won't need any of these things anymore. So we'll all just be living at home in 15-minute cities, and we won't use cars. We'll all be riding bikes. We'll all be just, it'll be a beautiful utopia, I guess. But in fact, the opposite is occurring. We see absolute disaster unfolding in the Middle East right now. What happens with Iran, Saudi Arabia, Syria, the Straits of Hormuz, shutting down oil supplies to Europe? I mean, are these people delusional?
Well, let's put it this way. The people in politics are delusional. What you refer to is the International Energy Agency report, right? That basically will have peak oil, peak gas, and peak coal in 2030. Now, the problem here is their paymasters sit in Washington, so they kind of have to report something that is received well there. I'm pretty sure if Trump would come into office tomorrow, they would immediately reverse this. So I would assume that they know better, but they just say, listen, these people pay our salaries, so what are we supposed to do? Because they, of course, then use it and say, look, the International Energy Agency said by 2030, as you correctly pointed out, right, we're going to be in this great renewable transition. Everything is going to be fine. None of this is going to happen. And the reason why it's not going to happen is a very simple one, which is that we still have a huge imbalance in, let's say, the 1 billion of the wealthiest people on the planet and their energy use, which is about 4 to 5 times as high as the energy use of the other 7 billion on the planet. So the assumption that these other 7 billion will simply say, all right, we're going to stay poor for the rest of our lives, I find, let's say, a very doubtful proposition. Now, the other argument is that they will leapfrog development. So they will move from using dung and wood for heating and cooking and their energy uses immediately to wind and solar. But again, that's never happened in human history. And they again have the problem, these things are intermittent. But people need electricity, energy 24/7, 365. And the people, if you talk to people in Africa, for example, if you talk to people in Asia, they know this. So whom do they turn to? They turn to Russia, they turn to China, right? They turn to countries that can provide them with the technology that they need. So this brings another wrinkle that you mentioned also when you talked about the Strait of Hormuz. We are geopolitically weakening ourselves. Nobody wants to do business with the climate and environmental crazies from Brussels to Washington because they say, listen, you guys want to keep us poor, as you just pointed out, while you turn on your coal power plants. They don't care about what we say, they care about what we do. And what we do, unfortunately, is 180 degrees the opposite of what that would we preach.
Right. It's like the rewilding efforts that we hear so much about through Europe. Like
Indeed.
we were able to, in Germany, we were able to, clear cut our forests and we were able to build farms. But we want you to never do that. We want you down there in Africa to never do those things. We want you to go right to using solar and wind. It is absolutely hypocritical when they're turning back to coal-powered plants and they got to go through all of these industrial revolution and do their own thing. So Africa, you bring up Africa, I have to imagine, they're sitting there saying, you guys come here and rape and pillage our resources. We certainly see what's happening in Niger. We see what's happening in Congo. You guys come and take all of our resources. You guys set up to steal our oil, to steal our minerals, to tell us what to do. And you're seeing, of course, coup after coup unfolding now through the African continent. You see what's happening in the Straits of Hormuz. You see these countries aligning themselves with Saudi Arabia and China and Russia. I think we are at a really pivotal moment here. And I think, I don't want to be too callous and say this, but I really think Europe is at a major pivotal moment. And we're lucky right now that we have this sort of warmer fall. Maybe we'll have a warmer winter again like we did last year, but we really dodged a bullet last year. And if we get a really dark winter, a really cold winter, we could be seeing really catastrophic effects throughout Europe. Businesses closing. We could see people, being sheltering in place, not having heat on and dying. More people die from cold than heat. And this is what these environmentalists forget and don't talk about. It's an inconvenient truth. Can you talk a little bit about how severe this would be in Germany, Austria, and some of the colder European countries?
Well, the severity, as you just described, we had this over the last winter as well. As you correctly point out, the evidence is absolutely clear. For the human race, cold is a bigger threat than heat, always has been. We are actually how much fur do we have? You have a little bit more on your head than I do, but we are not well equipped for this. But I think you mentioned something that's more important, because what governments are going to do is governments are, of course, very sensitive to voter behavior. So they will always try to redirect the energy that is available to households, which is fine, right, to the average person. But as you pointed out, this means there won't be energy for industry. So people can heat their homes, but they'll be out of a job. And on the long run, that is not a sustainable process. And this is, I think, what so many don't understand. Even if we make it through the winter without people dying of freeze in their apartment, we still continue to deindustrialize, right? We still continue to undermine our economic strength. And if you are no longer strong economically, well, you get poor. So it's a very low bar, I have to say. Look at our conversation. We talk about, well, what has to happen that Europeans don't freeze to death in the winter? That would have been a discussion to have, right after World War II in 1945, or maybe right after World War I in 1918, or maybe 500 years ago in the Middle Ages. But we shouldn't have such a conversation in 2023. Right. And that already shows you the absurdity of these policies. So even if we make it through the winter, which somehow we will, because we simply won't give any energy to the industry, we give everything to households. That's not a smart policy. That's not a sustainable policy. And no matter how you slice the story, right? This is suicide in installments.
But isn't it? And I hate to be conspiratorial, Ralph, and I'll get you out of here on this, but we see what the World Economic Forum is doing and their plans and what these globalists want, right? What do the globalists want? They want to shut down farms. They want to shut down industry. They don't want industrialization. They want us to stay at home. They want us to work from home. They want 15-minute cities. They want you to order everything that you need remotely and have it delivered to your house. They don't want you to get in a car and go places. They don't want using massive airplanes for cargo and transport. And so I know this sounds like a conspiracy. It's written down in their paperwork, though.
Yeah.
So when all of these things start coming to fruition, and they've been able to infiltrate all of these different governments at multiple levels, from Justin Trudeau to Jacinda Ardern, from you name it across Brussels. These people are in place and driving these policies. Am I a conspiracy theorist here, or is this actually part of their plan and it's actually happening?
No, you're not a conspiracy theorist. Let me say two things. One of them that might be slightly diverts from your view, but I think it still fits with the outcome. One, by the way, one third element I would throw in is the media. Because, of course, the media has been telling us over the last 30 years that those are the wisest of the wise, right? Justin Trudeau, what a great man. And then Ursula von der Leyen and all these people, Scholz, right? These are such great people. And Joe Biden, how lucky we are that he's back in office, because now the world will usher in this utopia. We have seen what happened over the last 3 years. And I think some blame goes to the US president. But that brings me to my key points. So one problem is the media, and the other one is because it's hard for people to speak up against the kind of the media cartel. If everybody tells you these are the best people, you don't want to be the one crank that says they're not. Luckily we have Redacted. Luckily we have you and me. We can say they're all buffoons. Justin Trudeau is a clown. John Kerry is a clown, right? I mean this. And as I always say, if you put clowns in charge, you get a circus. So I think one step of us has to be, so it is a conspiracy, but I think what underlies the conspiracy is idiocy. And I think at some point we have to say this. I think they really believe that. But as we just read, the laws of physics will not be, this is what they are trying. And only a fool or a madman would try to deny the laws of physics. And this is what they do. And the third wrinkle of the story is also what you just mentioned, which is the world is becoming significantly more dangerous. In many parts of the world, hopefully it's not going to explode, but countries are gearing up for war. If countries gear up for war, they will not care about the climate. So we're going to be in this absurd world where some parts are basically thinking in terms of national security, while John Kerry and European envoys travel the world preaching the glories of renewable energies and how we will be off oil, gas, and coal in 2030. So we are currently having kind of politicians that live in parallel universes. I think that the universe that Chinese, the Russians, the Indians inhabit is actually closer to reality than the ones that the Americans and Europeans inhabit. And let me give you a concrete example for this. So the Americans and the Europeans ban drilling wherever possible, fracking, exploration, resource development on our own territory. And then we go out and say, we have to lift sanctions on Venezuela. We have to lift sanctions on Iran, right? We have to lift sanctions on this country. Azerbaijan, all of a sudden, Azerbaijan is a reliable partner. Listen, I have no issues with these countries. But if you go to your audience at home and say, oh, we don't need these resources because we're going to be off them in 7 years. And then you go to every regime on the planet with a terrible human rights record and say, so could you guys drill for more oil? Could you guys make more coal?
Right.
Then it's a little bit hypocritical. And as a friend of mine uses like we try to ride two horses with one ass. Right? We say, oh, we no longer need these resources. And you see, by the way, the same. Look at the current conflict. And whatever our take on this is from a different perspective, but just from an energy economic perspective. So everybody is now, Hamas, horrible. We have to do something against Hamas. Cut off Hamas from money. Their main financiers sit in Qatar, who just made long-term gas contracts with the Qataris, pretty much every European country that has an LNG terminal. So instead of doing it ourselves, because there is gas in Europe, right? There's plenty of it in Europe, in Germany, in the North Sea, but we don't do it because the environment and the environment. Fine, but then don't be a hypocrite, right? You can't have it both ways. As I said, you cannot ride two horses with one ass. If you say the environment is more important for us than our security policy, then this is a decision. But don't tell people that you can have both at once, and don't tell people that we're going to be off fossil fuels in 7 years. It's ridiculous. These are statements by madmen, by buffoons. We should no longer take them seriously. Well, sorry for being very emotional today.
No, it's great, and the Biden administration just confirmed what you said, which is they said they're not going to allow drilling in Alaska, even though Alaskans want drilling there. So they've shut that down. So we are shutting down American drilling in favor of going to overseas and having to spend way more money to transport it across an ocean to bring it to the United States than in our own backyard. It's absurd. It's crazy. You're absolutely right about this. Ralph, always great to see you. My two favorite phrases: you can't ride two horses with one ass, and if you put clowns in charge, you get a circus. I'm gonna put that on a Post-it note and put it on my computer. I love that.
Make sure to give me credit. Make sure to give me credit for it.
There will be a quote. It'll be Ralph's name right under quote on this day in October. Ralph, great to see you. Good luck in Brussels. Hopefully you'll kick some ass in Brussels and talk some sense into those clowns running the European Union. Always great to see you, Ralph Schoellhammer. Thanks so much.
Fantastic being on. Have a great day, Clay.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.